So, are you happy to start?
That's fine. You can start.
Sure.
You can
Okay.
start anytime. I'll trust
Sure.
you with the additions.
Okay, so question 1, how does your degree use virtual reality?
What our course does is situate these technologies in industrial, professional, disciplinary, or multidisciplinary environments.
Yeah.
I would say that something that is distinctive about the course is that maybe it's a bit less about ideation and speculation, and it's more about transferability and trying to determine certain commercial opportunities for these technologies.
Yeah.
The key kind of ethos was built around digital fabrication, but probably the notions of making and visualizing are quite entangled with each other anyway. And we have this new immersive media facility coming up as well, so probably I would say it's not really, the technology is not really at the heart of the program. It's probably more the way we engage with industries and the way our students engage with challenges that they can source from our industry partners.
Okay. What do you think are the negative effects of virtual reality?
It's a tricky one. I mean, there are some negative effects that probably rely more on the implementation of that technology in terms of a user engaging with that, and that has been widely documented around dizziness, around things like lack of spatial awareness, and so on. I'm sure those things will be sorted anyway. I think that there are some issues that might not be necessarily negative, but that we haven't determined or investigated with much detail. For example, things like social detachment or lack of spatial awareness. I think that has consequences for the user that I think go much more beyond the technical resolution of a VR implementation, and it has much more complex ramifications into the way we interact with others, the way we communicate, the way we work, the way we experience things like leisure or personal interrelationships or stuff like that.
Sure.
I wouldn't say it's negative per se, but I think it's not. Maybe there is some more research that needs to be dedicated, and more examples and case studies to be dedicated to clearly understand the impact of those tools on the way we live, quite frankly.
Oh yeah. Okay. What do you think are the positive effects of virtual reality?
Well, it's probably part of the same thing as well, isn't it? Like there is a quite. I mean, virtual reality is one aspect of this kind of virtuality spectrum that was proposed many years ago, in the year '94, I think, when you have experiences of AR, mixed reality, virtual reality, and trying to address all these different ways in which the virtual can engage with the real in some sense, right? But that framework also suggests a description of what they call the device, the extent of the medium into the world, that ranges from screens all the way to displays, all the way to long-term immersive experiences in what those authors call surrogate tourism or surrogate travel, for example. So VR, if it is referred to the VR as in a more canon, implementation of head-mounted displays and so on, probably there is an element of new emerging industries that are quite good and interesting, things like virtual engineering, things like gaming, things like, I think there are all kind of new economies built around some technologies, which is great. But if we consider this continuum of ways in which the virtual engages with the real, I think that captures all the way from phones, all the way to virtual travel and medical applications, and a series of industry sectors that will greatly benefit from this. And we need to hopefully produce more research and industry partnerships to try to understand how that works, really.
Yeah.
It's good. I mean, we're all hopeful and really interested in that.
Yeah. There are films, books, and articles that have theorized about humanity being based in an immersive experience. What is your opinion on this?
Well, it probably links a little bit to what I mentioned before, isn't it? If we consider all these different ways in which the digital engages with the reality of the physicality of our world, I think that brings into question things like ways of knowing or ways of learning that highly mediate our experience with the rest of the world through means of the virtual. I'm not sure if I would take it to the extreme of the suggestion of living in a computer simulation, but clearly there is a new way of living that emerges as a result of virtualizing certain elements of our reality, and that's particularly interesting because it mediates absolutely everything we do: the way we work, the way we communicate, the way we talk to people, the way we produce, the way we experience, leisure and art and so on. So it's definitely a quite highly mediated environment. So I think that although some sci-fi visions might not be quite there yet, clearly there is a tendency to engage with a quite digitally mediated life at the moment, certainly.
Yeah. Okay. How do you think virtual reality is affecting education?
Well, we have programs on that. Well, it's I think it's part of the same thing. I mean, something that has been really interesting as we develop these new courses is the conversations we have had with colleagues from different schools or different disciplines, and discussing what do we understand by either the STEM or the STEAM fields, or the uses of technology in certain disciplinary areas, or what do we mean by design, what do we mean by visualization, what do we mean by a series of things. And every discipline has a different understanding of that, and yet every discipline has learned to find new ways into which certain things can be capitalized. The use of VR and AR in design or architecture is very different from the use of AR and VR in medicine, for example, or in virtual engineering in the case of mechanics and manufacturing and materials and so on. Probably I wouldn't mention a kind of blanket answer to that, in the sense that there is this good impact into education, but it certainly makes different impacts which seem to be quite positive into different disciplinary areas. And I think that in those intersections there are really good opportunities.
Okay. How would you say, or how do you think virtual reality is affecting society, or having an effect on society?
Probably that brings us back to a previous answer, isn't it? I'm not sure how to constrain that answer into what we could understand. There's a more classic notion of the head-mounted display and this person experiencing a virtual world through different means. I am more interested in certain benefits that technology can bring to either industries or users in certain contexts. And if we think about it even more broadly, as in a mediation of reality through means of the virtual, that pervades pretty much everything we do. Even in the most disadvantaged contexts of society, we see the digital becoming increasingly part of their lives through means of like mobile phones and stuff like that.
Okay. What problems have your course or currently having with virtual reality?
Well, the courses haven't quite started yet, so it's a bit of an open-ended question. What I would probably say is that the courses want to engage with challenges that are sourced and briefs which are developed in partnership with industry partners. We have been holding conversations with a series of different groups and a series of different industry partners that could potentially have some participation in the course. And it sounds like really broad and complex, but it's really interesting as well, the fact that we have been talking to people that produce optical instruments from using quite high precision machinery and very flexible manufacturing methods, all the way to conversations with construction companies that might benefit from the use of VR for applications such as construction management or design or visualization of new urban design areas. I think that there seems to be clearly an interest, particularly based on the fact that there is a new immersive media facility coming up as part of these new developments. And there seems to be an interest that ranges from experiences all the way to different scales of products, right? From buildings all the way down to small little lenses and small little components and machines. The way it's going to work, I think it relies a lot on the interest of students, because the course is designed in such a way that allows that flexibility and quite open-ended curricular structure when you can join in with a project.
Yeah.
And you run with it.
Yeah.
In partnership with real-world challenges and industry practitioners, and you can access the facilities and just get away with it on the way to a module on business skills.
Yeah.
In semester 2, that would allow you to eventually have a spin-off or startup or some form of IP, for example, that could range all the way from VR to digital fabrication and some other tools as well. So, yeah, I'm sorry, it's a bit broad, really, but I think it relies a lot on the expectations of both our partners as well as the students that might join the program. It is exciting, but we don't know what's going to happen just yet.